Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating chapter of American history, the Dutch colonization of North America during the European colonial era. While often overshadowed by the British and Spanish empires, the Dutch played a crucial role in shaping the early landscape of what would become the United States. From the founding of New Amsterdam to the rich cultural legacy that remains today, let's explore how the Dutch left their mark on North America. The early 17th century was an era of exploration, fueled by the ambitions of European powers eager to expand their empires and tap into the wealth of the New World. Among these powers was the Republic of the Seven United Netherlands, a nation newly emerged as a formidable maritime and commercial force. In 1602, the Dutch government granted a charter to the Dutch East India Company, known in Dutch as the Verenigd Oost-Indisch Company, VOC. This powerful entity was not just a trading company but a quasi-sovereign state, with the authority to wage war, negotiate treaties, and establish colonies. The VOC's mission in the New World was clear: to explore North America's rivers and bays in search of a direct passage to the Indies, a fabled route that would open the floodgates to the riches of the East. The VOC's mandate was ambitious, but it was also pragmatic. While the search for the Northwest Passage was a primary goal, the Dutch were equally interested in establishing control over new territories. As the VOC's ships sailed westward across the Atlantic, they were not merely seeking a new trade route, but also looking to stake their claim on any uncharted lands they encountered. One of the most significant figures in these early ventures was Henry Hudson, an Englishman hired by the Dutch to lead an expedition in 1609. Hudson was no stranger to exploration. He had already made several attempts to find a northern passage to Asia. However, it was under the Dutch flag that Hudson made his most enduring discovery. In the fall of 1609, Hudson's ship, the Half Moon, entered what is now known as New York Harbor. Sailing up the river that would later bear his name, Hudson explored the region extensively, laying the groundwork for Dutch claims to the area. This exploration was a watershed moment in the history of the New World, as it marked the beginning of Dutch involvement in North America, a presence that would shape the region for centuries to come. The lands Hudson explored were soon recognized for their strategic and economic potential. The Dutch quickly moved to formalize their claims, establishing the colony of New Netherland, which stretched from the southern tip of Manhattan Island to the upper reaches of the Hudson River Valley. This region, rich in natural resources and ideally situated for trade, became the focal point of Dutch colonial efforts in North America. The first Dutch settlement in the region was established around 1613. It was a modest outpost, consisting of several small huts built by the crew of the Tiger, a Dutch ship under the command of Captain Adrian Block. After the ship caught fire while navigating the Hudson River, Block and his men were forced to winter on the island that would later become Manhattan. During this time, they constructed the huts that would serve as the nucleus of the first Dutch settlement in the New World. These humble beginnings belied the grand ambitions of the Dutch, who envisioned New Netherland as a thriving colony that would serve as a vital link in their global trading network. In 1614, the Dutch reinforced their presence in the region by building Fort Nassau, the first of two forts by that name. Situated near present-day Albany, Fort Nassau served as a trading post where the Dutch could conduct business with the local Algonquian and Iroquois populations. The establishment of these trading posts, or factorigen, was a key component of Dutch colonial strategy. Rather than seeking to conquer and subjugate the native peoples, the Dutch sought to establish mutually beneficial trade relationships, particularly in the lucrative fur trade. The fur trade was the economic engine that drove Dutch colonization in North America. The cold winters of Europe created a high demand for furs, particularly beaver pelts, which were used to make warm, water-resistant hats and garments. The Dutch, like the French to the north, recognized the immense value of North America's abundant fur-bearing animals. To secure a steady supply of furs, the Dutch cultivated alliances with the indigenous peoples of the region, most notably the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois, a powerful confederation of 5, later 6, nations, were the dominant force in the region. They controlled vast territories and maintained a sophisticated network of trade routes that extended deep into the continent. The Dutch, recognizing the strategic importance of the Iroquois, sought to forge a strong relationship with them. This alliance was mutually beneficial. The Dutch provided the Iroquois with firearms, metal tools, and other European goods, while the Iroquois supplied the Dutch with the furs they needed to sustain their colony. This relationship was not without its challenges. The fur trade was fiercely competitive, with the French to the north and the English to the south also vying for control of the trade routes and the favor of the native tribes. However, the Dutch proved adept at navigating these complex dynamics, often playing the different European powers against each other to maintain their influence. As the fur trade flourished, the Dutch began to expand their settlements in New Netherland. The colony's population grew slowly at first, hampered by the challenges of transatlantic travel and the harsh conditions of the New World. However, the Dutch government and the VOC were determined to make New Netherland a success, and they implemented several policies to attract settlers to the region. One of the most notable of these policies was the Charter of Freedoms and Exemptions, introduced in 1629. This charter granted large tracts of land to any member of the Dutch West India Company who could establish a settlement of at least 50 people. These land grants, known as patroonships, were intended to create a class of wealthy landowners who would help to populate and cultivate the colony. The patroon system encouraged the development of a feudal-like society in New Netherland, with large estates dominating the landscape, particularly along the Hudson River. One of the most famous patroonships was Rensselaerswyck, established by Kilian van Rensselaer, a wealthy Amsterdam diamond merchant. Rensselaerswyck covered a vast area along the Hudson River, including parts of what are now Albany and Rensselaer counties in New York. The patroonship became one of the most successful settlements in New Netherland, serving as a model for other colonial ventures. Life in New Netherland was not without its difficulties. The settlers faced numerous challenges, from the harsh climate and difficult terrain to the threat of conflict with both native tribes and rival European powers. The colony's remote location and the relatively small size of its population made it vulnerable to attack, and the Dutch had to remain vigilant to protect their interests. One of the most significant threats to the colony came from the English, who had established their own colonies to the south, in Virginia and New England. The English viewed New Netherland as a strategic threat, and tensions between the two powers simmered for years. These tensions eventually boiled over into open conflict in the mid-17th century, as the English sought to assert their dominance over the region. The growing power of the English colonies and their relentless expansion put increasing pressure on New Netherland. In 1664, the inevitable happened. An English fleet, commanded by Colonel Richard Nicolls, sailed into New York Harbor and demanded the surrender of New Amsterdam, the capital of New Netherland. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Dutch governor, Peter Stuyvesant, reluctantly agreed to surrender the colony without a fight. The English renamed the colony New York in honor of the Duke of York, who had been granted the land by his brother, King Charles II of England. The English takeover marked the end of Dutch rule in North America, but it did not erase the Dutch influence in the region. Many of the Dutch settlers remained in what was now New York, and they continued to play a significant role in the colony's development. The Dutch legacy is still evident today in the place names, architecture, and customs of the region, as well as in the enduring spirit of entrepreneurship and tolerance that characterized New Netherland. The story of Dutch colonization in North America is one of ambition, resilience, and enduring influence. Although their presence in the New World was relatively short-lived, the Dutch left an indelible mark on the history of the continent. They introduced new ideas about trade, governance, and society that would shape the development of the American colonies and, ultimately, the United States. The Dutch approach to colonization was unique in several ways. Unlike the Spanish, who sought to conquer and convert, or the English, who established large, agriculturally based colonies, the Dutch were primarily interested in trade. They established a network of trading posts and settlements that were designed to facilitate commerce, rather than to create a new homeland for Dutch settlers. This focus on trade and profit made New Netherland one of the most economically dynamic colonies in North America. The Dutch also brought with them a tradition of religious and cultural tolerance. New Netherland was home to a diverse population, including not only Dutch settlers but also Africans, Jews, and other Europeans. This diversity was encouraged by the Dutch policy of religious freedom, which allowed settlers to practice their faith without interference from the government. This spirit of tolerance would later become a defining characteristic of New York and would influence the development of American society as a whole. The Dutch colonization of North America is a fascinating chapter in the broader history of the New World. It is a story of exploration and discovery, of conflict and cooperation, of ambition and adaptation. The Dutch may have lost their colony to the English, but their legacy lives on in the vibrant, diverse, and dynamic region they helped to create. Today, the impact of Dutch colonization can still be seen in the cities, towns, and landscapes of the northeastern United States. From the bustling streets of Manhattan to the quiet farms of the Hudson Valley, the influence of the Dutch is woven into the fabric of American life. Their contributions to the development of trade, governance, and culture have left a lasting imprint on the history of the United States, and their story continues to inspire those who seek to understand the complex and multifaceted history of North America. In the end, the Dutch colonization of North America was more than just a quest for wealth and territory. It was a grand experiment in creating a new society, one that would blend the old world with the new, and in doing so, lay the foundations for the modern world we know today. That wraps up our exploration of the Dutch colonization of North America. The influence of the Dutch can still be seen today in everything from place names to architectural styles. Their contributions to trade, governance, and culture were significant, even if their colonial presence was relatively short-lived. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from the past that continue to shape our present.